anything after that. So, again, earlier today, Dave Aranda, Jack McKenzie was there. Dave Aranda mentioned that Tay McWilliams, running back, who was going to be their starter, and also Cole Maxwell, who got hurt in the BYU game, are out a bit longer. Khalil Keith, big part of their offensive line last year, was not played, a ways out. Hopeful on Ben Sims, the tight end. They need him back. And also Monterey Baldwin, who helped stretch the field. They need both of them, are maybe. Depending on what happens, of course, throughout the week.
Who the heck knows? They could be totally greenlit right now, and he's not going to say otherwise.
Probably
there'd be no point in doing that ahead of this game on Saturday. But, yeah, I think it's notable that he's said that Khalil Keith and who else is Tay McWilliams. Like, Tay McWilliams, that's interesting because he took a big pop, and it was, apparently looked like concussion-related or head injury-related. So kind of, interesting that he might miss another game because usually that's like a one game and you're usually kind of back. So, yeah, it's definitely something to monitor there. But, yeah, if they can get Ben Sims back and Monterey Baldwin back, I think they'll be fine. That was the good part about Saturday was they were able to get, 10 different receivers caught the ball. The entire tight end room basically caught a ball. They were able to go deep into their ranks to really spread the love, basically. And it wasn't always pretty and it wasn't always crisp, but I think by the end of the day, their offense felt a lot better about where things stood and who, Shapen could rely on and really what they probably need to do with him and his legs a bit more to open things up. And there were just certain things that I think there were positive takeaways from Saturday, even if it wasn't always the prettiest sight.
They tried to do that with Brigham Young, would not allow the bootleg to have Shapen have the run-pass option. He had to make decisions very quickly or didn't have time to really make many decisions. I was going to say this about Kyle DeBoer, and then we'll go back to Aranda and Baylor. I have to put, he was 67-3 as a coach at NAIA.
Yeah, he's
won 3 now. He was like Pete Fredenberg there, except Fredenberg was at Mary Hardin Baylor for a long, long time.
Yeah, he's been shooting up the charts for a while.
Really impressed with that. All right, so in the game on Saturday, Baylor takes care of business against Texas State. Aranda was asked a question, and he kind of went into this philosophical, what he does, and that he felt like when they got into halftime, that he felt like the assistant coaches were like very uptight. And he even heard, and he said this in the interview, a post-game press conference, some F-bombs. And he kind of like, man, what's going on here? And they were winning 21-7, but it wasn't free and easy.
No, it was 14-7, and then right before halftime. No, it was 14-7 with about 2 minutes to go until halftime, and then Blake Shapen breaks off a big run, and it was 21-7. But before that run,
it was
there was there needed to be a lot of stress because you were beating Texas freaking State. All due respect, 14-7 at home at halftime.
It looked like the 2020 offense. It really, really did. It was sluggish, and it didn't get much going. So, having said that, I followed up with Dave Aranda today at his weekly press conference and asked him about, was it healthy of what they were able to get done and get through and kind of let that release at halftime? And here is Dave Aranda.
Dave, you mentioned the pressure point Saturday at halftime. You could almost feel something was on edge. As someone with your background and what you study, was that cleansing, that people kind of released the tension, the pressure, the expectations, and cleared it?
I appreciate that. I think we're still in the process of doing that. So we're speaking about halftime. I could really sense in halftime I think the coaches were like this, and because of that, the team was like this. And so I forget exactly what I said, but it was something like, just drop it, man. And so you instead of being like this, you'd love to be just like that. And I just think you can play green if that's the case. And I think all of that is, there has to be an emphasis on growing and improving, and that has to be over, proving to others that you're worthy, or proving to others that you're worth it. And I think we might be tilted too much in this area, and it needs to be more of an intrinsic thing. And I think, and that's just way difficult. I think there's I showed it to the staff. I showed there's a scene in The Matrix, one of my favorite movies, and so there's a scene where Morpheus and Neo, they're on the street and they're in the Matrix and they're walking, and it's a so the Matrix is program, and they're walking this way, just those two, and everyone on the street is walking the other way, and they're bumping into guys trying to walk on through, and it's like a whole thing, and so that's what it is. It's that. So that's hard to be intrinsically and to be focused on who you become as a result of all of it. Right, and to be process oriented when the outcomes are just so out there, is to walk against the grain with all of it. But that's the fight. We talk about the task within the task. That's clearly it. And so we can't lose that in the face of these games, and that we'd love to win, but could very well lose and don't control the outcome with all of it. I think we keep the focus on these things. We'll continue to get better throughout the end of the year.
All right, that's him and The Matrix. And, that's a movie that I've only seen scenes, but his reference and analogy to that scene, one of the scenes in The Matrix with Keanu Reeves and company, it was pretty neat when you think about it. It's like when you see cars going in different directions because the light may be broken, a traffic light, and no one, can you go or not? And then you're kind of stuck right there. And that's what they look like. And then Chapin had the bootleg, scored. Heck, I almost missed it, and I'm watching it from the top. And then there was a little bit more free and easy. The turnovers, though, and you mentioned that in your Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Craig, in the premium site. You turn it over, you lose the turnover battle in Ames on Saturday, I don't see how you win the game. And they've coughed it up a couple of different times in the fumbles by, Reese and maybe Squirrel in that game.
No, it was Squirrel and it was Fleeks.
Josh Fleeks.
Richard Reese didn't fumble.
Richard Reese, Paul, he's got that ability to make people miss and somehow just find a sliver in between a bunch of human beings.
You know what he is? What the other running backs aren't right now, even Squirrel a little bit, is that he is the wide zone back who can make the one cut and just go. And he's in the open, he just runs. He's already decided he's going to sprint, and that's great. So, yeah, you have more and more of him. He's somewhere between, I think, Tay McWilliams and Squirrel, and I don't know, like you said earlier, don't know when we're going to see Tay McWilliams again. I do think in spite of Squirrel's kind of rough day with that kickoff return to the fumble, they still need to figure out the way to get him the ball more. But Richard Reese was certainly a highlight of the game, and they're going to need multiple players. Look, they did it last year. It wasn't just Abram Smith. It was also Treston Ebner. They did it with, guys who could change pace. They need multiple backs to do it, and they need depth, obviously, since their starting running back, Tammy Williams, is out. So, yeah, he was a breath of fresh air on Saturday, and they're going to need him to do that in Ames again.
It's basically if they didn't have that happen, then there'd be a whole lot of OS going on right now because they have only really Squirrel Williams, and he can't go, deep every single week. Look how many carries he had compared to last week. Last week he had his career number of carries. He's got the injury history, so people are going to constantly be worried about that. He had, 8 carries in this game this week after having 15-something, whatever it was last week. That was a career high, so they cut his carries in half. They could do that because Richard Reese could tote the rock and get them yardage, and they kept cracking him on that defense. They kept putting him out there, and eventually they knew he was going to break through that dam. He was going to just chip away at it, and he did. And he bust through with a big 50-plus yard run, and then later on had another big, long 20-plus yard run, and that's what they were looking for. They were building up his confidence. Just keep toting the rock, and eventually you're going to break through, and eventually he did. And they need that to happen because, the plan was coming in as, Tay McWilliams is our starting running back. We've seen absolutely nothing of him, basically. So he's a non-factor right now. And until he comes back, he's going to remain a non-factor. So it's on Squirrel and whoever else wants to ring the, whoever else wants to answer the bell. And Richard Reese from Belleville, no pun intended, did do that on Saturday, and they desperately needed it because they had nothing outside of Squirrel other than a little bit of Quaylon Jones, but even he still is a little bit of a work in progress. But now you've got Squirrel and you've got Reese, and you got some explosiveness there, and then you add a little bit of Quaylon and his physicality, and there's something that's starting to take shape a little bit. You'd love to have Tay in the mix as well, but for right now, it's better off than it was prior to Texas State, that's for sure.
A note